Scientists are telling us that we're standing on a precipice and we need to convert the global economy and make it emissionless. And those emissions are caused by every single one of our jobs, every one of us contributing carbon emissions to the smog. For instance, if I write a rhyme trying to describe climate change and it's hot, so it catches on, someone's gonna fly me someplace to perform it. And the appeal of that is enormous. It's not an option for me to turn down work for global warming, cause I make it hot. Yeah, people say my rhymes are dope. I twist words until they're unrecognizable. I make it hot, I make it easy for cheesy. So hot, even climate change skeptics will believe me. I make it hot, like the temperature it needs to be before the Tea Party will believe the IPCC. I make it hot, I liquefy the Greenland ice sheet. 7 meters of sea level rise, that'll do nicely. And yeah, humans are adaptable, and we can toughen up, but that response ignores people who feel like it's already tough enough. Make a list of countries that nobody visits as a tourist. They have low carbon emissions. The richest inflicted this on the poorest. We did it by heating our houses and feeding our spouses and flying and driving places and having no patience for power outages. The Pope calls it anthropocentric. He calls it obnoxious, but I got work to do, and work takes energy to accomplish, and I make it hot. Yeah, turn up the heat on the crowd. You make it hot too though, so don't try to be weaseling out. I make it hot, like the African sun, like the Paleocene, Eocene thermal maximum. I make it hot. You feel that bass when it vibrates? Hot like the permafrost releasing methyl hydrates. I make it hot, like a planet with low albedo, like me rocking a trench coat on a beach instead of a Speedo. Hot with no apologies, but still I'm feeling a lot of grief for the impact my lifestyle has on the planet's ecology. My carbon footprint is bigger than cryptozoologies. I'm talking Loch Ness monstrous, so I'm not at peace, because the aggregate effect of every decision I'm making is tragic. But I can't just quit. They say that we're carbon emission addicts, but that's just glib. You want me to live in poverty abject? And if I did, what happens to greenhouse gases on average? If I quit and you don't, it's still hell in a handbasket. A traffic jam with no plan of action, fantastic. It's an arms race that we're trapped in. It's ominous. It's self-interested parties stuck in a tragedy of the commons. The problem is caused by our collective emissions of carbon, but the person who emits is not the person emissions are harming. That's a failure of the market. Like everyone is incentivized to pollute as much as they can get away with and catch a free ride. So it's no surprise to still see emissions on the rise. When the cost of burning fossil fuel is externalized, it's effectively subsidized. It's paid for by the victims of the eventual climate impacts that are caused by our emissions. And Bill McKibben and The Guardian have been targeting investments like dirty energy is the new tobacco. So keep your distance from anybody making a profit off of fossil fuel. Cool, I'm down with the boycott. I'm just boycotting myself too, cause I make it hot. Yeah, I cause a heat wave. How about 9 degrees hotter than the hottest ones these days? I make it hot with artists, musicians, comedians. It's like a creative example of civil disobedience. So let's make it hot, right? People, let's turn up the heat on polluters trying to catch a ride on all of us for free. I make it hot on the mic and in my social life, cause this one thing is the most important thing for us to get right. And that's how you make it hot. Welcome to the New York Botanical Gardens. How are you guys feeling today? That's right. They asked a climate rapper to host the show. The first ever New York Botanical Gardens Climate Change Arts Exchange. I really appreciate you all being here. We have an amazing collection of performances, people that take the science seriously and take the arts seriously. If you're wondering who I am, I do rap theater shows off Broadway about climate change. I'm the artist in residence at the Soho Playhouse, and I invite you all to the Rap Guide to Climate Chaos. So today we have an amazing array of artists that are going to entertain you, educate you, inspire you. But before we begin, there is a video message that we would like to share from the president of NYBG, from Carrie Rabora Barrett. So let's hear from her first.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Carrie Barrett, the president and CEO of the New York Botanical Garden. Welcome to this beautiful, beautiful place. And today you're exploring the arts, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about our Chorus of the Forest by our composer in residence, Angelica Negron. Angelica has an ability really to hear things that I wouldn't have heard without her. So she's always looking for sound in everything and vibrational energy that's coming from things that I might have thought were completely silent. When the Chorus of the Forest premieres on that first weekend in November, what an exciting day that will be to see people coming upon choral groups at set locations throughout the forest. There are many, many people who visit us because they know that we are a beautiful garden of plants, but the combination of plants and music is in some ways the greatest joy of all, and that's what we're really about, bringing joy, not just making people happy, but actually creating that extra sensorial, out-of-body awe that I just know will happen on that weekend in November. I hope everyone here today, has a wonderful, wonderful time exploring the arts at the New York Botanical Garden, coming back for the Chorus of the Forest, and taking a look at all of the other amazing programs that we have that do integrate fine arts, choral arts, nature, and everything in between together.
Thank you so much for joining us here today at the Climate Change Arts Exchange. My name is Thomas Mulhare. I'm the Director of Public Education here at the New York Botanical Garden. Our department strives to pursue the garden mission through performance and other arts. Carrie just described our very first commission, the Chorus of the Forest, which debuts on November 2nd and 3rd by our very first composer in residence, Angelica Negron. Now, we all know that the news about climate change is pretty dire. We also know that doom and gloom is not necessarily the best motivator for human behavior. Laughter, tears, joy, great beauty, that is the language that actually moves us. So, we hope to inspire educators and artists to join us in this important work, where we don't think that any challenge is too big or too distant, and actually making this a more emotional connection, more personal to our everyday life. So join us today and in the future as we continue to explore new ways of exploring, new ways of advocating for this change. Thank you.
Proliferation of plastics in our environment represents consumer convenience.
Plastics essentially, they never go away. They just keep getting smaller and smaller, and they continue to impact the ocean even in their tiniest, tiniest forms.
numbers are quite startling. The invasion of atmospheric CO2 into the ocean, it's now over 1 million tons an hour.
The problem is that has changed the chemistry of the ocean and will change it more severely in the future.
And we're starting to see this manifest in a lot of ways, but one of them is through the food web.
The whole food web is linked.
It's a chain reaction. What's going to happen? We don't know.
So the loss of anything could have effects on us as humans several years down the road.
If you start to look at ecosystems that have lower biodiversity, typically they are more variable, they're less productive, and they're more prone to collapse.
Tell me again and again, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Step 1. Don't deny the fact of it. The link is established as definitively as the tobacco link to cancer is. The science is accurate. Step 2, find ways to tackle it. It's actually not a complicated mission. The greenhouse gases are baked into the system and they only get eliminated when you regulate emissions, but political motivation is missing. No one's listening. No one's gonna buy an inconvenient truth when they're just getting by, and it's convenient to keep believing comforting lies. But the ocean doesn't sleep if we keep shutting our eyes. Emissions keep rising. Plus rising temperatures without precipitation triggers drought conditions. Liquid evaporates and vegetation's dry as tinder. That's why the West is on fire all winter. I wish it was simpler and less of a mess, but it's only gonna get worse and worse unless every one of us emits tons and tons less. That's the only way to change what comes next, and that's in every individual's hands. A city can have a plan, a company, or even the whole industry can. Emissions are getting capped, but not fast enough. We gotta wake up and act. We can maintain beautiful seascapes where we can remain and don't need to escape, because we changed the energy system and refrained from poisoning the wellspring and showed restraint. Doesn't it seem strange that we can change the seas with greater ease than we can change these brains? Do you see change? That's a sea change, and it's not gonna stop until we change. Do you see change? That's a sea change. It's not gonna stop until we change. Do you see change? That's a sea change, and it's not gonna stop until... That's right.
And so we need to figure out how we can live in harmony with the earth.
Starts with the imagination, the curiosity, trying to understand how and why something works.
It's this seeking the unknown.
about science, when you think about some of the great scientific discoveries, they're discoveries because something happened that we didn't realize was going to happen. And so the trick then is being able to recognize that. Having that creativity, that imagination to say, aha.
Science is an interactive process between the imagination and the precision and the creativity that's required to actually make some meaningful observations.
We have this peer relationship between scientists and engineers, and so we work very closely with the engineers trying to develop new tools. And so we're trying to put together a holistic picture of what is happening in a way that we can continue to do that over time with robots or having some operational entity.
And so to be able to develop things that can be out there, taking measurements when we're not there is really important.
The creativity that engineering inspires, it gives one hope.
Evolution is genius. It produces all of the weirdness we see in nature, from the abalones to the seaweed needs to the needlefish to the dolphin squeak. And evolution is always moving, always reaching, finding new designs and solutions seeking. And out of all of evolution's inventions, none of them is as truly impressive, as mind-blowingly effervescent as the universe they call bioluminescence, right? Now in the sky is a giant battery, and it's a viable strategy to extract energy and light from it actively, but that is not an option in the pitch black deep where light never penetrates. Now imagine being the first intrepid ape to descend into the abyss, imagining underwater would be a desolate waste like outer space, and then suddenly it's like, amazing, it looks like Vegas. Jesus, look at this Cirque du Soleilness. It did not evolve to entertain us. It's just another one of the wonders of nature from which we can take inspiration, especially in times of darkness and despair, when we need creativity to solve a major scare, right? That's when we can look to the spark of nature's flare and we'll find bioluminescence. It's always there.
But in the ocean, almost everything has the ability to make light. And so our job as researchers is to try to understand what they're doing with that light.
There are symbols in the reef. There are shapes. It's a world of shadows out here.
passes across the tree of life. They can create flashes, glows, pinwheels. And we think of these organisms as primitive or simple, and yet they have this ability that we can only dream of. Is a magical power that these animals seem to have.
The rhythm of the ocean is timeless.
Of nature have an arrangement of the way the world works, which every now and then shines a beautiful beam of light.
From light comes life. That's the ocean.
Imagine a single molecule of H2O in a state of solitude. You could not pollute it if you wanted to. You could add an atom or two if you want is true, but after one or two, that would no longer be water that you added to. In a way, you could say water has a certain attitude. That's not a magical view. Water just has a set of physical preferences, generally trending in the direction of togetherness instead of separateness. That's why it takes energy to evaporate it or smash into a mist, but when it's left to its own devices binding, it's effortless, right? It's covalent bonds that give it that connectedness, but get enough molecules together and it emerges as liquidness, and when you're trapped in the midst of it or cast adrift of it, that's when the ocean comes to just symbolize majestic, unlimited power, right? So how could something as magnificent as the ocean fall victim to something as trivial as human effluence? Well, as with the molecules, so with the pollution. One of you is not enough, right? This level of pollution takes all of you. But then again, same with the solutions. One of you is not enough to change the future. It is only a movement of creative humans that can do this. The question is, will we? Will we face the music? Will we drag the clueless down to the water's edge so we can see how much waste we threw in before the life-giving ocean lays in ruin? Do we have the strength to choose this path? I say, let's do this.
I see so many sectors coming together over these issues.
We need to start working together with everybody that we can to get a better sense of how things are going to change and how we can live with in this planet where we have made an imprint.
Everything in the ocean is sort of all mixed together, and in order to understand processes more fully, it generally requires a multidisciplinary approach.
It's about creativity. It's about being with other people that are creative thinkers that can come up with novel approaches to solving problems.
In fact, it's only individuals in the end who do make a difference. One one individual coupled with another one, and you've got a crowd, or you have a movement.
If we could get the people to make themselves heard, the policymakers will have to follow.
I think everyone can find their way to become ocean champions through their own passions, through their own talents.
We do have an opportunity to turn this thing around.
Every little step we can take is going to be helpful.
Here we are standing united together. This is what we care about.
I'd like to introduce Fran Spector Atkins to the stage, the creative director of Spector Dance, the mastermind. And one round of applause for the dancers who learned this piece, special for y'all. They are Adrienne De La Fuente, Danielle Rutherford, Shani Deegan, and Taylor Gordon. Please give them a big round of applause. Thank you. Yes, thank you. So Fran, I just want to give you the opportunity to talk about this piece. We've been working on it together for several years, have performed it almost a dozen times, I guess, over the years, and this was an excerpt. This was just under half of what the actual production is. So what does this mean to you, and what made you want to do it?
Thank you, Baba, and it's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm delighted. So this piece is a collaboration with the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, and I based the work on interviews that we did with renowned ocean scientists, and I feel a responsibility to get their words out to the public. I think it's through dance that we can reach audiences, we can open the door to understanding ocean science in a different way from just through a science lecture. So I feel honored to work with the scientists and also with Baba Brinkman and with dancers. And this piece is educational as well as meant for general audiences. So I'm excited because we're going to be performing at the Smithsonian on June 8th for World Ocean Day. So thank you so much, and thank you again.
Thank you. Take that as a piece. One more time for Fran and for Ocean Trilogy and Spector Dance. It was such a privilege to help NYBG to curate this event, because the imagination can run wild. How many different art forms can we put to this challenge of finding out about the facts of climate change, the political challenges, and then applying the arts and finding ways to, tap into our emotions from various angles. And this next guest presenter is one of my favorites. We did a show together a few nights ago at the New York Comedy Club, which felt very little like this audience. Let's just say more alcohol and curse words. But he's going to tickle your funny bones. Please put your hands together for Mr. Chuck Nice.
Hello, hey, how's everybody doing, huh? How you guys doing, huh? What a fantastic audience. It is wonderful to be here, and I want to thank Baba and the New York Botanical Gardens for having me. This is fantastic, and what a wonderful mixture of methods and means to communicate climate. For those of you who don't know, according to this picture, yes, I am Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. It's great to be here. Yeah. No, actually, I do a show with Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Apparently, they were expecting him, but that's how high this microphone is. Hold on, there we go. Yes, he's a big guy. But I've been working with Dr. Tyson for about 10 years, and that's how I got into this space. I was working with a lot of climate scientists, working with people from NASA, Jet Propulsion Labs, people over at GISS here at Columbia, and as I read their work, like actually read their studies, I was terrified. I was like, oh my God, why is no one talking about this like in the way we should be talking about it? And it changed me. As a matter of fact, I am not just a climate concerned. I actually walk the walk. I live in Jersey, and I would like to tell you that just like Greta, today I swam here. And I don't mean like just across the Hudson, because I live in Hoboken, so I swam up the Hudson to the Bronx. And then I walked. However, I will say that I want to talk to you guys, and I want to say that we have to start reframing this whole issue. That right there is the Easter Bunny. Now, you may remember there was a time in your life you believed in something that didn't exist, and it was really hard to let that go. The first thing we have got to do when it comes to climate is stop framing the issue as a question. We ask people, do they believe? Do you understand? Do you believe in climate change? We ask them if they like there's an option. Like if you actually say yes, like the next morning we're gonna leave $5 under your pillow. Like, oh my God, I believed and look what happened. Yes, it's real. No, it happens whether you believe it or not. And the second thing we have to stop doing is allowing those who are not a part of this conversation to drive the conversation. About 8 out of 10 people in this country actually believe that this is happening, and they believe, and a significant portion of those people believe that we're causing it. So here's what I have to say. If you're at a party, and there's 10 people, and 2 out of the 10 don't want to drink, they don't want any music, and they don't want any dancing or food. The other 8 people should tie those 2 people up, put them in a closet, and have the party. And that is what we need to do. We do not need to have this as a debate anymore. Those of us who are convinced, let's get to work. Let's get moving. Stop worrying about those other people, okay? If they come along, they come along. And if they don't, let us activate, because our actions will motivate those who are sitting on the sidelines and do believe. And I just wanted to say that because it's very important that we understand that climate must be marketed. That's what we're doing here today. In a way, we're marketing the issue. And we live in the land of entertainment and the land of marketing. So why is it that we can't take this issue and market it like everything else that we do? Everything in America is marketed right down to our elections. That's right. The leader of the free world is a reality TV star. If that does not convince you of the power of marketing, nothing will. Now, I would like to stay on this image a little longer, but I feel you people getting sick. Also, I was told if you can't say something nice about somebody, don't say anything at all, and so there we go. This is how we are marketing the issue right now. The media approaches it this way, what I call disaster porn, okay? They show you images of destruction and mayhem, and they're like, yeah, because they need eyes to come to the screen. And what that does is it creates what was said in the beginning of the show, the doom and gloom. It creates hopelessness, okay? And what ends up happening is, hey, we're going to actually get to 2 degrees Celsius, and then what's going to happen? Well, we're all going to become zombies and die. That's what's going to happen. And that's the way we're framing this issue right now. But the truth of the matter is we don't have to frame this issue that way. The first thing we should do is call it what it is, all right? Global warming and climate change are 2 different things, okay? Climate change is a result of global warming. So we confuse people when we conflate these 2 issues because we kind of go back and forth with them and we don't use either one correctly, which is why I came up with something, and it's called, very simply, human cause climate crisis, okay? Human cause climate crisis. That's what it is, and that's who's doing it. We are doing it. It's creating a crisis. And I know that's a lot to say, so I called it down to H3C. Kind of catchy, right? You know? That's why I'm wearing this shirt. And H3C now, okay? Start using it. And I needed to catch on. People, because it sounds cool. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing to end H3C? You know? What's H3C? Human cause climate crisis. Oh, man, for a moment, I thought it was something you smoke. And that is why I started something called Shh, It's Real. Now, if you collapse that, you'll get the meaning. There's children in the room. That's all I'm saying. But Shh, It's Real is an actual campaign that I started, kind of doing what we're doing here, but aimed directly at young people 16 to 25 years old, and we want to meet them where they live, which is on YouTube and social media, and it's all about what we're doing here today, and that is why this is a brilliant, brilliant concept, and that's why we should give a big round of applause to everybody who's involved, and Baba, very much so. Because these are part of the solutions. This, what we're doing here today, right now, you're being a part of the solution. Don't let people doom and gloom you, man. Right now, just being here, being engaged, being involved, you're a part of the solution. Now, is that enough? No, of course it's not enough. But is that a start? Yes, it is a start. And does it mean something? Yes, it does. So in improv, we have something called both and, right? You never say no. It's always and, right? So I'm saying for this problem, it's and. We do this and we do this and we do this and we do that, okay? Because this is our motto. At the beginning of every disaster film, there's a scientist being ignored. Am I right? Right? There's always a scientist. Wait a minute, Mr. President. We have new data on the issue. I don't want to hear it. And then, of course, the world ends, okay? So, with that in mind, how do we talk about this issue? Well, I think we have to talk about this issue in a more simple way, and entertainment is that way. Entertainment is one of the best ways to engage people. Your brain is actually designed to receive entertainment messages better than it does anything else. And I have a friend, her name is Dr. Heather Berlin, and I have a very simple video where she gives a simple explanation of how effective entertainment is. And it's starting now.
So I think that entertainment is a great way to help people learn information for a number of reasons. One is it's a way to learn things passively. It takes a low amount of energy. You're just taking in the information without having to, it's not very cognitively demanding. The other is that entertainment is like a super normal stimuli. So it taps into these evolutionarily older parts of the brain. That's what entertainment is meant to do. It either makes us happy if it's comedy, or it can make us sad. But we find that evolutionarily speaking, when something activates your emotional system or your amygdala, you remember that information more, right? Because it makes sense to tag the memory. So the amygdala has lots of connections to the hippocampus. And so when you activate
activate the amygdala, you're sending messages to the hippocampus that's helping encode the information that you're learning. So the way that a memory is encoded in the brain is actually a physical process where you are strengthening the connections between neurons. So they say what wires together fires together. And what helps strengthen these connections is actually when emotions are being activated at the same time, and also dopamine. So when you're curious about something, it activates, you release dopamine, which affects parts of the brain like the nucleus accumbens and the ventral striatum. And these are all interconnected in the limbic system. And again, they help instantiate, they help you have stronger connections when you're forming these memories in the brain. So it's a real physiologic process. In that way, entertainment is the perfect medium by which to help people learn things without having to really try that hard, and they'll be more likely to remember them.
See how simple that was? Super, super simple. Now, I got to tell you something. That, of course, was a joke because I put that in my presentation to let people know that a lot of times this is how it sounds to people who aren't concerned about this issue. That's how it sounds. But this is such a nerdy audience. You guys were just like, wow, this is really interesting. Why did you cut her off? I wish I could hear more. I mean, this is really, really good. So the joke didn't work, but you guys get the message. Bunch of eggheads sitting in a room just like, wow. Which I appreciate that for you. But here's the way we should talk about it, okay? Here's the way we should talk about it.
So basically, we learn better when we're entertained because it's fun. And when we're excited about something, when we're having a good time, or even when we're emotionally moved by something, or when a film makes us cry, we remember it better. Think about it. Where were you June 20th, 1987? You might not remember, but if it was your 10th birthday party, you'll remember that. So memories are stronger when they're associated with emotions.
Boom. Super simple. Memories are stronger when they're associated with emotions. So what we have to do is find an emotional connection point for people when it comes to this issue. If we can find an emotional connection point for people when it comes to this issue, they will attach themselves to the issue, and that's when we can start activating them to do something and not before. Because entertainment is a way to make that happen, okay? Without entertainment, we would not have, and this is my estimation, I don't have any empirical evidence to prove this because I would have to go back in time with a time machine and actually play things out differently, but I don't believe that without entertainment, we would have our first black president, Morgan Freeman. Absolutely. And believe it or not, I think because of the depictions of black presidents in the media, we actually started softening up to the idea of having a real black president. You know what I mean? So actually, I went too far forward. But there's my president, okay? Hashtag not my president, but hashtag is my president. Anyway, my point is that because of images like this, I think that helped, didn't cause, but helped us as we move forward in our democratic process to elect the first African American to the highest office in the land. Because, why? There was an emotional connection through entertainment. Here's another emotional connection, you already saw it, so it's the turtle with the straw in its nose. I don't know if you're familiar with this image or not, but it went viral. It became a meme, people were talking about it, there were jokes about it, and as a direct result, you saw some municipalities, some organizations, some corporations ban straws. So people say, well, that doesn't do anything, that's not enough. Who cares? It's an action, and it's one action that can lead to another action, that can lead to another action, that can lead to bigger action, okay? And it's because there was an emotional connection. I have a friend who is a comedian, and he says that I had a straw stuck up my nose all through the 80s, and nobody cared about me. My poor friend, my poor friend. So the idea is that entertainment gives us an opportunity to reach people where they already are. The power of entertainment is very, very real. I did an experiment. I took some images out on the street and I asked people about the images. I'm gonna play the game with you right now. Here's the first image. Tell me what it is very quickly. This is the very first image. This is a slow dissolve. So what is it? Absolutely. Even if you don't watch Game of Thrones, you know that's Game of Thrones. Here's the next one. Slow dissolve. Who is that? What is that? Walking Dead, absolutely right. Everybody got that on the street. Here's the next one. What is this? What is this? Okay, hardest one of them all. And you all know it, Breaking Bad. Even if you don't watch the show, you know exactly what that is because that's the power of entertainment to permeate the zeitgeist and let you in on what is happening. So the next one that I gave, I put this up for people to see. Uh-oh. Okay, the slide's not there. Okay, but the slide is this. A big white card, imagine, with the numbers 415 and then under 4015, ppm. Who knows what that is? Parts per million. 415 parts per million is relevant because of why? Carbon in the atmosphere that is relevant. Why? I don't know who said it, but somebody just said it. Because this May, that's what we reached. So 420, you know, is the big number. Well, we're at 415. And 420 is a big number for a lot of reasons, but thank you. The people who laughed, I know what you're about now. Anybody who laughed at that, I know. But 415 is where we are right now. Guess how many people got that on the street? Guess how many people got that one? Absolutely right. Zero, not one person. One guy got close. He said, all right, give me a second. All right, here we go. 415 post PM. I said 415 post PM, that would be 415 post midnight, which would be 4:15 a.m. And he's like, oh, okay, well, you got me. That is gravity. Nobody asked you if you believe in gravity, ever. Has anyone ever asked you if you believe in gravity? No. You know why? Because you don't believe in gravity, you accept gravity, right? You accept gravity because if you don't accept gravity, if you're like, I defy you, gravity, I defy you. Gravity responds with, well, wow. Never defy gravity. Whatever you do not defy gravity, people. That's what will happen to you. First, it will ruin your presentation. And then it will put you in a body cast. Oh. So, entertainment is how we reach people. Laughter is how we reach people. This is Poe. Poe is the mascot for our campaign. Poe is the PO'd polar bear. And he's PO'd for several reasons, one of which is because he's black. And a polar bear. That's rough. The other is because he's being constantly trotted out as the poster child of climate, but yet nobody does anything for real to solve it. So we did a sketch, and here's a clip from the Poe sketch, just for you to see. No. So you believe in climate change?
Well, this is all God's will. There was once a flood, now there's this. If it's within his plan that the earth heats up till we are no more, it's not my job to interfere.
Oh, hell no! No!
What?
It's real. That is every polar bear's dream. So that's a message. That's a message that is received through laughter, and it's a good one. Here's another one. This is children. These are children, and with Greta, who I love. And by the way, this is coming from a comedian who's dead inside. To all the adults that are attacking her, nice job. What a terrible thing. But we cannot look to children. I love Greta. I love children. And I love that they are impassioned, and I love that they are involved. But it's our responsibility. And right now, there's a lot of people who kind of feel like, well, the kids got this. The kids do have this. So I have a message to those people from the children.
To all the adults who think this is our problem, we have a message for you. F*** you!
said any better than that. By the way, that little girl is just the smartest, cutest, most adorable young lady I have ever met, and she's my daughter. And the other kid with the glasses, that's my son. And afterward, that's a whole sketch where we did, well, the whole sketch. And at the end of it, he was just like, it was so cool seeing Charlie say F you, Dad, but he didn't say F you, he said the words. And then he said, I can't wait till maybe I can do a sketch where I get to say F you, and he said the words again. And I said, you just did it twice and you got away with it twice. It's never happening again. And he said, wow, man, I thought we were on a new level. So with that, I will leave you with this. This is an all-hands problem. You are the solution, okay? Don't let anybody tell you differently. Yes, it's going to take municipalities, federal government, state governments, and policy. Yes, it's going to take corporations coming on board, changing their supply chains, getting involved. But all of that, yes, it takes children, all of that, education, all of that is what I call pressure from beneath. Pressure from beneath. We are the pressure from beneath. And I will end with this. If you need a reason to take heart in this issue, know that this is it. We have the opportunity to be the generation that changed the course of human history. How awesome is that? To know that you are a part of changing the trajectory and the course of humanity itself. No longer will they be able to say your grandparents are the greatest generation. I want to be the greatest generation. Thank you. I
Oh my goodness, that was an emotional roller coaster. We have the artist that created that work. He is a current visual artist in residence at the American Museum of Natural History here in New York, and we get a chance to talk to him about it. So please put your hands together for Brian Fu, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hi, Brian. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know the last time I went from feeling amazing to feeling horrible in such a short period of time.
Sorry about that.
How can music do that to us?
Yeah, I mean, music is a very human thing, and it's very unique in the sense that it can manipulate your emotions. And I thought this is a very interesting data set that can be expressed through music in an interesting way. So basically, what you heard was a loop of a brass band from New Orleans, and it starts off very energetic. The brass bands are very positive, very energetic, and the idea is that as you see the land being lost over time, that manipulates the music that you hear. So the loop, as more land gets lost, the sounds get stretched. So it was a completely a song that was completely composed by the data. So I didn't manually create the song in any way. So what you hear is about 25% of the land being lost in coastal Louisiana, which corresponds to about, I think it's about like 2,000 square miles, which is, if you average that over 78 years, that's about 1 football field per hour for 78 years. So the idea is that, using music to kind of give you a very visceral response, a visceral reaction from that data.
How hard is this to find the thing that makes the data come alive? I guess you start with the data, right? And you look at it and you're like, how do I make people feel this?
Yeah, I think you definitely start with the data, and the challenge is to figure out how to match the right sounds and the right kind of compositional strategy to the resulting song. So that you kind of have to think about what music does well and what your ears do well. In this case, your ears can perceive change really easily. As you saw in the visual, if you kind of look at the visual over time, it was very subtle, slow change, but it was a massive change. You could definitely hear that with the sound, which might be a little more difficult to see with a chart or with a map. And it also has this quality of kind of getting stuck in your head, as the previous presentation kind of talked about, is that, when you deliver something through music, you kind of have it, it's stickier. So that was kind of another aspect of that.
And can I ask, what makes you, as an artist and as a data scientist, gravitate towards topics of public importance, specifically this one, which is one of the hardest ones to get across to people? What motivates you to make this?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways to communicate certain information, and I think all different artists, all different communicators kind of have to use their medium to kind of figure out how to make these messages stickier and activate certain people. And in this case, really thinking about how music can do that. Yeah.
Great. Okay, last question. Can you give us any sort of sample of something you're excited to work on next, or something you're looking into? Because this was powerful, and it makes me super curious about what else you could take on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different interesting data sets out there. I think definitely, sea level rise is a big thing, and this is kind of another part of this is, with this data set, it's local, but it's also has a global impact. And the effects are from global sea level rise as well. So I think, the ocean in general is just a very rich, both physically but also through data, a very rich place to take this stuff from.
Okay, I didn't prepare this one, but it just made me think of this when you said that. It seems like a natural thing where if a music piece goes from fast to slow, it brings the mood down. Mm-hmm. If you were to visualize with music the sea level rise, but have the musical tempo and tone shifts go the opposite way, would you feel like there were perils in making people feel good about a situation that's bad?
Yeah, I mean, that's the very fascinating part about data sonification or kind of data music, is that you can't help but create a feeling from the listener. So you have to really think carefully about what that feeling should be, because it's very easy to kind of send the wrong message as well. So that's kind of a interesting kind of gray area between being an artist and being a data scientist, where a data scientist tries not to bias the viewer, the listener, whereas the creative person is very deliberately kind of evoking certain emotions from the listener. So finding that balance is important.
Every artist you see on the stage today is overtly trying to hack your amygdala. Fair warning. Big round of applause for Brian Fu, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Wow. So the thing that got me into this space is about 5 years ago, I was doing some scientific rap songs on evolution, and a climate scientist reached out to me and said, "We need help. Can you write some rap songs about climate change?" And I like the idea of the challenge, but when you sit down to do it, it's hard, right? Like, oh, this is a heavy topic. You bring it up, the mood goes down. You're trying to make people have fun. Like, how are you going to make them throw their hands up? And all they're pointing at is the new parts per million measurements and CO2 things from Mauna Loa, and now we all feel terrible and our hands go down. That's why this is hard, and that's why everyone working in this space is working with that challenge and how to make you feel stuff. Conflicting emotions, let's say, but it's a drag, right? Let's be honest, climate is a drag. Sometimes climate being a drag is a good thing.
I'm feeling a little blue today, y'all, because some people talk about colonizing little red plants that are keeping this one green. I'd like to dedicate this song to my recent nephew, Ben Casey. I can't tell the season, I don't know, all because of global warming. All the bees have stopped their swarming, but I can find a reason to hold on. We can limit our emissions
Okay, you could just sit right over there. Hello. Can you define climate change in your own words?
Oof, that's a tricky one.
If you want to help the environment, how would you help it? How do you convince people that they should start preventing climate change?
Well, it's...
How do you think we would come by geothermal energy? Drilling down deep into the earth is going against what we're trying to fight with oil drilling.
These are really, really good questions, man.
What do you think about climate change?
I think that climate change isn't really something that comes with the earth. I think that we created it and we could stop it, but people aren't really trying to stop it. It really feels like people aren't listening to what we're saying. Scientists predict that we won't have a huge drastic effect and for, I think, another 50 years. That's when my generation comes in, and it's my generation and my children that will be affected the most.
And with our technology rapidly advancing and using more and more resources to make that technology, what will be our future?
There'll be garbage all over the floor and the air won't be clean. It won't really be good to live in that place. Just by basic temperatures, it's not fake news, by basic temperatures we can see the Earth is warming a subtle amount. That subtle amount can destabilize the environment. It makes the sea level rise, and it also destroys homes of polar bears, seals, and penguins.
And what do you think that you and your generation can do to try and make a difference?
We can have strategies
so
that we're not all just being in our homes. This is a nice life, and then there's climate change, but because we're just being lazy.
Exactly.
We need to, what's it called? How do I phrase this? We need to just stop not caring. There's another way to put it, but I can't place my finger on it.
I think that's a pretty good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I guess I should stand in this light right here. So I'm the founder of the Human Impacts Institute, and first I want to give a big round of applause to Annalie Fisher, wherever she is. Please, yes. So Annalie is one of our impact artists in residence, and she actually won a competition for drag queens to convince all of you to take different types of action on climate change. And she's actually going to be a part of a pilot we're writing called Climate's a Drag. Because really, we need big, bold, and beautiful climate action, don't we? And drag queens, aren't they the best, big, bold, and beautiful people out here? So we're really excited about that. But to take it a step back, at the Human Impacts Institute, we're really about experimenting with how do we inspire environmental action? How do we inspire each of you to get up off of your seats to instead of watching Game of Thrones, or maybe after watching Game of Thrones, to take action? And we really see a big part of that is a lot of you, I would say all of you in this room, care about the climate crisis. Yes? Yes. Do any of you feel like you're doing enough? Do any of you know exactly what you should be doing? Yeah. So that's what we experiment with. We want to help you connect with actions and not try to change who you are. You don't need to become a climate scientist, and you don't need to become an activist. But whoever you are, we need you. If you're an accountant, believe me, us nonprofits, we need your help in order to run. If you're an entertainer, a comedian, no matter who you are, we need you. And so we experiment with that. And I want to give you an example of this week, of some of our experimentations. First off, we were a supporter of the climate strike and supporting our youth and getting out there on Friday. Yes, give it a round of applause. Because they are putting their voices and they are taking their days off of school to go out there and speak for us. And so the least we could do is get behind them on that. So we did that. On Saturday, this is our house on Governor's Island. We had over 1,000 people come to our Future Festival that we co-hosted there, the biggest climate action festival New York City has seen, to show you how many ways you can get involved, from activism to technology to politics. We had the city of New York next to drag queens. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful day. And on Tuesday, we were invited by the United Nations to come and share an exhibit we're doing on talking about how we start thinking about who are our leaders on these issues, because some of them might not actually be in politics. They might be in our communities, and shifting that narrative and highlighting particularly women in some of the most vulnerable communities in the world that are taking actions on climate. And then today, we have a climate escape room going on where you can learn about 2050 climate resiliency data by doing an escape room game. And at the same time, you can go downstairs with an artist and scientist collaboration in this house, and you can put an EKG monitor on, and you can see how your brain actually responds in real time to climate issues. So that's who we are. That's what we're about, is really supporting both the doers and the creatives that are our experts and inspiration, so that we can really help you connect to action. So thanks for being here, and thanks for including us.
I am David Haskell, and I am a writer and a professor at the University of the South. I write about trees and forests and people's interconnections with those. Every level imaginable, from the chemical to the physiological to the physical to the cultural, ecological level, our lives, human lives and tree lives, are interconnected. And that interconnection means that our fate is tied up with the fate of forests. Bird watchers, hunters, all sorts of different ways in which human community engages with the forest, sometimes in very productive ways, other in ways that are quite broken and fractured. And through those sounds, I've tried to understand some of the stories that are under the surface. I went to particular trees around the world again and again, and literally opened my ears to them to try to attend to the many sounds that echo in their wood, that blow through their leaves, that come from the animals that are associated with the tree. And that includes human conversation. Part of the sounds of trees are the sounds of people around the tree. So sound, in a way, is the great revealing sense. Just as we can identify birds by sound, we might also be able to identify trees by sound. And those sounds in trees partly come from the physicality of trees. A white pine has a very different wind song than a sugar maple. And the sugar maple sounds very different in May and June and September and November, because its form has changed. And that form reveals itself to our ears if we just pay attention and listen. So through sound, we come to realize that trees are very dynamic beings. Minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, they're adapting themselves. Our lives, right from the very beginning of when we evolved as Homo sapiens, we were intimately connected with trees. And into the future, even more so, with 9 billion of us on this planet with expanding appetites, we will need to be in good relationship with forests to have a viable, vital, wonderful future.
I absolutely love David's work, but it makes me feel like years and years of missed opportunities in my life. Because my former job is that I was a tree planter. So I've had 2 jobs in my entire life, planting trees and rapping. And I literally planted trees for more than 10 years in Canada. My father started a company in the 70s that has now planted 1.5 billion trees across Canada. And I personally planted more than 1 million myself. between the ages of sort of 16 and 25. And that's also when I got into hip hop. I taught myself how to rap to the sound of my shovel scraping the ground and planting trees. One of the first raps I wrote was in 1998. And I'll just give you a little sample of it. It goes, I chant this to replenish like a sandwich when you're famished under bandages. My hand is badly damaged, but I manage by the handle grip to brandish my shovel as I plant this great expanse of forest vanished where the planet has been branded. Trees get slammed into the slanted land with frantic speed as I dance with an enhanced sense of romantic, and I can't get disenchanted. Which is pretty much the rap that you would imagine a Western Canadian guy doing. But I feel like I miss these sounds, right? The things that David was talking about in the video, because if you were on a cut block while I planted trees in the 90s or early 2000s, all you would have heard is the sound of me jabbering to myself while I planted as I try to teach myself how to rap. So I feel like the songs of the trees that we're going to hear about in David's work and Angelica's work, this will be my education that I missed at the time. So we were really honored to have these two people here. David is a pioneer in this space of sonification of nature, and Angelica is the first ever composer in residence of NYBG. So please put your hands together. David Haskell and Angelica Negron. Thank you so much. Great to see you, David. All right. So this is a huge pleasure for me. It's not a question whether trees sing. We just don't know how to hear them. And you have found ways to make their songs audible. Why did you want to do that, and what made you start doing that?
Well, sound is the great revealing sense. Sound goes through things and around things. There's a closed door, you can hear what's happening behind closed door. And so a lot of the lives of trees, the lives of plants, are closed to most of our human senses. But the sense of sound takes us on that journey. And for me, the song is first the acoustic manifestation of the tree, but then all the stories and the history and the tree culture associated with that. So song is both acoustic, but it's also about the ideas and the emotions and the interconnections that brought that sound into being.
So when you go by a tree, you don't always think of it as an entire ecosystem or an entire culture or an entire city. What was it that made you notice that, and how much time did it take for you to get this perspective on these things, these living beings that we're constantly sort of taking for granted and walking past?
Yeah, well, for me, birds were the gateway drug.
You heard it here. Gateway drug to trees. Birds.
I think that could be an interesting collaboration for NYBG and some ornithological groups. The messaging might need to be tuned for younger audiences. But so of course, birds are mostly hidden as well. But if you open your ears up, you can identify all the species and learn even the individual birds living on your block. And that's how I started my career, studying birds, studying their conservation, and teaching young people about birds and how to identify them by ear. And as I opened my ears to the ornithological world, I realized, oh my goodness, that hemlock tree sounds completely different than the maple tree, and the maple tree sounds different at different times of year. So there's this whole acoustic world of plants that, in fact, is celebrated in some poetry and literature and so on, but mostly we think of them as silent beings, which also biases us to think of plants as being almost dead, these stationary objects. And I think I hope some of my work, and certainly Angelica's work, is breaking down that barrier a little bit, saying, no, these plants are dynamic beings, and we are in relation to them. And sound is one of those ways that we can connect.
This just makes me recall my comparative literature days in university when Wordsworth was one of my favorite poets, and one of his favorite lines for me was, "One impulse from a vernal wood can teach you more of man, of moral evil and of good, than all the sages can," which I think is kind of what you're getting at.
Wonderful. And if we could open our ears to that impulse, what might we learn from that? And of course, we live in worlds that direct us down to the phone, to the little screen that is monetizing our attention and grabbing our attention. There's nothing wrong with having some eyes on the screen once in a while, but we also need our eyes and our ears and our fingertips in relation with other creatures as well. And I think that's one of the great challenges of our time when we think about climate change, is the challenge of inattention, of disconnection from the living earth that we're a part of, even though we might imagine ourselves to be separate. So just the simple gift of giving attention to a bird, to a tree, or indeed to another human being is I think, part of the work we need to do to address the climate crisis and other crises that are happening, political, cultural, and social crises that are linked to the biophysical crisis of climate change.
So I think we need to hear some examples. I would love it if you could take us on a tour of some of the sounds that you've discovered amongst the living beings in the forest.
Absolutely. So these are short 10-second clips. I think there are 5 or 6 of them here. And the first one is recorded with a microphone, a special microphone that records vibrations inside the wood of a tree. And this is what we'll hear is the sounds flowing through the inside of an American beech tree. My ears heard nothing here, but I put this microphone onto the tree and I can hear what's happening inside the wood. Oh my goodness, the tree is full of sound. And as we walk around today, after the event here, take a walk through the Botanic Garden, it seems quite quiet. There's not much wind happening today, but even the slightest breath of wind through the twigs and the leaves of the trees all around us are sending that kind of vibration through the tree. And the tree uses the nature of those vibrations to decide how it's going to grow. Which branch should I make stronger? Should I grow more twigs this way? Should I orient my leaves that way? It's using those internal vibrations to understand its environment and its place, and then to grow in an appropriate way, just as our own human body senses the environment and grows it in response. So I wonder if people can guess what this next sound is. Any guesses?
It's the sample around which I'm going to build my next hip-hop beat.
Okay, good. Well, that was the sound of a carpenter bee inside a piece of wood chewing away the tunnel. So this is the mother carpenter bee drilling a hole through the wood, which she stuffs with pollen, and then that pollen is the food for the young carpenter bees that will grow up for the next generation. So this sound reminds me that trees are the great home and food for most of the animals on the planet. Most of the terrestrial beings, the birds, the insects, the nematodes, the fungi, make their lives on or in trees. And that particular sound was the sound of just one of those. If you were a woodpecker, you would hear that sound. They have ears tuned to listen for those little munchy sounds of insects inside the wood. And the woodpecker would be right on that, drill away and try and pull out that carpenter bee, or the beetle, or the other creature that's making sound inside of the wood. So in a way, we're hearing the sounds of the food chain when we hear that sound. So this next sound is a sound of 2 different trees. And I mentioned in the video that each tree has its own voice, just as we can identify birds by ear. We can also identify the sounds of our human friends just by hearing them, just from the tone of voice. The same is true for trees. So listen to this clip. The first clip is a cottonwood tree. You'll hear its leaves rattling and shaking. And the second is the whoosh of wind through a ponderosa pine, one of the most talkative of all trees. Even the slightest breeze evokes a great big whoosh. And you'll see that the sonic texture is very different for these 2 sounds. So that was first the cottonwood and then the ponderosa pine. And so my invitation, or perhaps since I know there are some teachers in the audience now, the assignment and the final paper is due at the pearly gates after we die, is to a challenge for your life is, can I identify some of the common trees in my neighborhood by ear? Can I discern one from another? And I think it's an interesting challenge, and it's a challenge to invite students into, because through that attention, then our curiosity is stimulated. Oh, what was that other sound that I heard? Or why do these trees sound so different? So this next sound is one that I recorded in the Tennessee forests in late August, early September at night. And this is the exaltation of productivity heard through the singing of insects in the trees. Hear that great pulsing. So these are katydids, little insects that look like leaves up in the trees, and that was the sound of thousands of them. Those katydids are fed by eating the leaves on the tree. And so what we're hearing is the sun's energy that got captured in the tree and then converted into insect power, manifesting as sound. So I think of this, even though the sun has gone down, this is an experience of experiencing the energy of the sunlight that's been filtered through the biosphere and is emerging in this great triumphant thunder. And in fact, in these forests, it's louder at night with all these katydids singing than it is when you're standing on the state highway with all the trucks and the traffic going by. There's so much acoustic energy present. And those of you who are lucky enough to be in tropical forests know that the sound is even higher. Sometimes you come out and your ears are ringing, so much exaltation of insect life. This next sound, the second from last sound here, doesn't sound much like a tree. In fact, it will sound like a piano. What I've done is put a little sensor on the twig of a maple tree. And it turns out that twig has a pulse, has a beat. In the daytime, the twig shrinks down because water is flowing through it from the roots out to the leaves and the air. Just as when we suck on a straw in a milkshake, that straw gets sucked in. That's what's happening with the twig. It's drawn inward, and then at night it fattens up. So there's this 24-hour pulse of vroom, vroom, vroom in the twig. It's silent, of course, but what I've done is take the data from that twig measurement and turned it into the notes of a piano. So you'll hear the notes going up and down on a 24-hour cycle. So this is a little sonification of the heartbeat of a sugar maple tree. So it's getting higher and higher because this is in the springtime and the twig is actually fattening up day by day as it grows. So as you walk around your neighborhood, whether it's street trees or trees in a forest or a park, remember that even though they may be silent, there is this daily pulsing happening at a subsonic level. And this is one way to sonify that. And this last clip is again recorded from inside the wood of a tree. This is a tree on Broadway and 86th on the Upper West Side. I recorded it as a subway was coming 2 flights of stairs below the tree. And what you're hearing is the sound of the subway that's come up through the earth, through the tree's roots, and into the tree itself. Again, you can't hear it with your ears, but with this special microphone hooked into the wood of the tree, we can hear that the subway is in fact experienced on the inside of the tree. So that vibration inside the tree becomes part of the tree's being because it actually grows thicker wood and stronger roots because its wood, its roots have been shaken by the number 1 line going up there through the Upper West Side. So there's a reciprocity here. The vibration from the city enters the tree and becomes part of the tree's being. But then we too hear the sounds of the trees, breathe their aromas, are cooled by them, and the trees being, whether or not we're aware of it, becomes part of who we are as well. So these sounds connect us. It connects the subway to the tree, to us, and back again in these endless sensory loops. And I think that's one of the essences of our understanding of biology now, is that no one of us is alone. We're made out of relationship. That's the fundamental nature of life. And the lie that has been told for the last 150 years in biology is that the individual is the fundamental unit of life. The individual gene, the individual organism, the individual species. What we're learning now is that, in fact, that community of relationships is the fundamental unit of life. And sound is one way that we can access that and participate and enjoy and celebrate that community of life that brought us into life and that sustains us every moment.
So for the biology nerds in the house, David has just come out of the closet as a group selectionist. And for anybody here that believes in the Christian view of life, he's also given you some great help. Because now when St. Peter is like, did you listen to trees? You won't be stuck there like, no, they don't make noise. Too bad, sucker. Ah, I thought they were inanimate. Helpful, useful information. Okay, Angelica, I really want to bring you into this conversation because David has innovated ways of finding the sounds of nature, and you are innovating ways of creating whole new compositions and sort of musical soundscapes out of them. So I would love to know how you discovered his work and how it has inspired you and what you're doing with it now.
So as a composer and sound maker, I thought of myself as a very deep listener until I started reading your books, and I was like, wow, there's so much more to listen. And just reading a whole chapter about the sounds in one specific tree in Tennessee, and realizing how much there is there, how much texture, color. It just started, the first thing for me was I just started listening in very different ways and listening more actively. And I feel like there's something very beautiful and poetic that comes across in David's words that really connects to those sounds that he records as well. And I feel very lucky to have had the luxury of him giving me all that material and saying, do anything you want with them. And as part of the Chorus of the Forest, the piece that I've been working on for the past year, I remember when I received that magic folder full of awesome tree sounds, I was like, hi, I'm gonna do all these things, manipulate it, process it. And as soon as I started working with it, I just wanted to let them exist how they are. And I've done very simple things, layering them, fade in, fade out, having them come in and out. Making choices about where they would be placed in the soundscape. For Chorus of the Forest, there's going to be about a 45-minute soundscape that's going to activate the whole forest with sound. And that's playing through speakers throughout the forest, and about 80 to 100 voices will be accompanying these sounds, singing live as well. But it's just been a true joy to just dig deep and zoom in the tiniest sound and find ways to combine it with human voices. Yeah.
Can I ask as a follow-up, how much of this do you consider kind of found work versus your own creative process? Because obviously you can't make them say what they're saying. The trees or the plants will say what they say, but then you have leeway about how to harmonize, how to arrange, compose. How much of it do you feel is you and how much is a collaboration with the plants?
Sure. A lot of my work, especially in electronic music, comes 99%, I would say, from acoustic sources. And the acoustic source, it's almost always found sounds. A lot of things from my kitchen, pots and pans that you'll hear sampled as well. And sounds from nature as well that I record myself, but that are not as ambitious and deep as the ones that I've gotten to work with from David. But I feel like there's this, as a composer, you make choices, right? And how to organize the sound, the pitch of the sound, where it's gonna go, the tempo of it, So there's musical elements that I'm constantly thinking of, but I always find, especially when I'm working with nature sounds, that part of my job as a composer is let the sounds exist as they shine best. And in this case, that means combining them with other things that I'm making more specific choices, but integrating them in a way that feels harmonious.
Can we request a little sample of what it's going to sound like in real time?
Sure. I'm going to move here and try to talk and also check sound, which I'm not great at.
Let me put one question to David, and then when you're set, then just give us a nod. David, you have a biology background as a scientist, but obviously artist as well, creator of soundscapes. Art made from science seems kind of almost like a heresy in the sense of this two cultures view that's dominated in a lot of universities for like the last, 100 years, 150 years. Why do people consider the arts and sciences separate domains, and what do we need to do or to say or to show that will bring people around to them being collaborative?
Well, I think that the greatest collaboration is the fact that the human creativity isn't divided in that way. So in every one of our minds, we don't have a little box for the arts over here and a little box for the sciences over this way and so on. Our institutions have imposed that on the human psyche. And there are good reasons for that. There are different practices and crafts and to do your 10,000 hours and all the rest within a particular area. It helps to specialize, but in specializing, what we lose is that potential for interconnection. And I do think different people have different dispositions. Some people are much happier in one realm or the other, but the most fruitful, for me at least, the most fruitful sources of new ideas, of inspiration, is when there's a conversation happening among people who really deeply know the particularities of their fields. The other thing, just standing on a street corner here in the city or sitting out in the forest, that's a very integrative experience. It's not like, oh, here's this science view of the street corner and here's an artistic view or an anthropological view. It's an embodied experience of being in a particular place. And I think what great collaborations among different disciplines like art and science do is bring that embodied experience back together again. So it's a synthetic process.
In a way, you could say the artists and the scientists are both doing a similar thing, which is taking an unexamined or uncritically accepted experience and showing you a whole new way of approaching it. I was rapping before I was trying to be a science communicator, and at a certain point I was like, okay, I've got this art form, what should I do with it beyond just tell my own story? And I started finding the stories of science as the most fascinating ones to tell. But it was interesting to do art about science and come up against it. Well, it's not real science, or not rigorous enough, it's facts only, or how can it be art if it's grounded in some handcuffs that stick it on the science or whatever. So,
yeah, absolutely. No, those preconceptions and those ways of belittling the work of others or even belittling ourselves, I think, are one of the things we need to break free from, particularly in education. Because it's really not helpful to our students to think, well, this science has to stay in this box and art over here. I think that's a view that diminishes the creative capacity of all of us.
And everyone you've seen on this stage today is somebody that looked at that chasm between the arts and sciences in the sort of popular imagination and decided to build a bridge, or just leap. Are we fly?
Yes.
All right.
So I'm gonna play a short minute excerpt that's part of the soundscape that's going to be playing throughout speakers as you walk through the forest. And you'll hear 4 of David's sounds. You'll hear the beech tree grapple, which is the sound of icy rain falling onto the beech leaves. Then you'll hear the carpenter bee that we heard before, an ash tree ambient sound from a Tennessee forest, which has birdsong in it, and also stout twig. And that's combined also with other sounds that a lot of them from my kitchen, again, pots and pans and manipulated voices as well.
And just for the clarity of the audience, this is a brand new work that you've been composing in collaboration with NYBG, and it is the first ever public preview?
It is, yes.
All right, so this is gonna premiere in the first week of November, and it's a sample of something that will be an amazing experience that you should all come and get, get the whole enchilada.
So besides all the elements that we talked about before, there's another element that's happening with this little succulent over here. And the technology called MIDI Sprout, which was developed by a company called Data Garden. And what is happening is there are electrodes on the plant's leaves, and they're monitoring the plant's biofeedback and measuring the rate at which the electricity in the plant is changing. So right now, the Carpenter bee that we've heard a few times by now, it's being activated and triggered by the plant's electricity.
So it's sending a data signal based on its electricity, and that's making the Carpenter bee sound pulse at the right time.
Exactly, and the environment and anything that's happening around it, like my touch as well, impacts that. And it's called MIDI Sprout. It's sending MIDI data, which means I can have control of any sound I want for it. So in this case, I decided to add the Carpenter bee sound, but in the course of the forest, it will be controlling other sounds as well, more pitched sound materials, vibraphone sounds, bell-like sounds, and you'll hear that also in the preview that I'll be performing later today.
And you could DJ your house music set at Ibiza with a collection of palms all around the stage. All right, should we try and do something innovative here? I hear a rhythm in it. Is it just my imagination? All right, you play with it. Yeah, check it out. All right, I will do a little freestyle rap. It's the first rapper ever that was rapping to a plant. Oh my God. Yo, what I say is great. I'm loving this, and that right there is my jade. Ha. Check it out, it might come in the door. I felt really bad when it fell on the floor. It was amazing. The freestyle's blazing. That plant is speaking to me. It can say things. Yes, people listen up. They're like, it's dope. And the plant is talking to the crowd with electrodes. I'm just here, I'm rhyming and flowing, and it is talking with its xylem and phloem and its electrical signals. I got the info, yes indeed. Beats, I just ripped those. Doesn't even matter if it comes from some cholesterol or chlorophyll. Either way, it's the best for y'all. That's how we go. Yeah, I put it on. Me and Angelica Negron. Yeah, indeed. I will do it, just stomp it like a brontosaurus. It's the chorus in the forest. Got lots of sounds for us. That's how it goes. I hope your future is good. Plant grow. Can I claim first rapper in history ever to rap to the sound of a plant's electrical impulses right there?
I think so.
As far as we know. So tell me more about how integral the science is to this, and also the forest experience, because this is not just something you listen to on headphones at home. It's NYBG's actual physical space that inspired it, and how important is that to the experience, and how much did it inform your process?
Well, this is my first site-specific work, and I couldn't think of a more beautiful, better place to be immersed in for a whole year. It's been really amazing to be able to have guided tours of the forest, meet with horticulturists, with authors, sound artists, a lot of people that have been thinking about these things very deeply for a long time. And to also be in the forest and compose, it's something that I've never done before. Two of the choral modules that will be part of the piece were written mostly at the forest. And I feel there's something very, very special about thinking of not a piece of music, but more of an experience. Something that at the core wants people to just listen in a different way and be present. So it's a very different thing for me as a composer to sit down and write a piece with that in mind, rather than just think like this, music is moving. This is more of a sculptural piece in which you choose your own adventure depending on where you start on the forest. That's your beginning and might be the ending for someone else. And there's going to be also mechanical percussion instruments that I'm collaborating with an instrument maker, Nick Yeoman, who's making this beautiful bell and woodblock tree structures that are going to be played by themselves in a similar way that wind chimes work, but this being robotic percussion. So this idea of the forest coming alive, really. And then within that, you find little pockets or huge pockets like the Hester Bridge, which is the hub of the piece over the Bronx River, in which there are collective stories of resilience of communities and nature being actually vocalized and verbalized by human voices.
Are we? Can we be treated to a performance as well? Is this a good time for that?
Sure.
Okay.
I can do a short excerpt from one of the choral modules. As I said, there are 4, and with different configurations of singers. I will not be performing in the chorus of the forest itself. I have been working with 4 amazing choruses. One of them is the brilliant Celia Cruz High School Choir, which is a lot of young, amazing voices. And this module that I wrote for them is called Seed, and it's inspired by this story. I forgot to mention that a lot of the text for the piece comes from a call, kind of an open call that I did in social media and friends and family to just share with me their stories of connections to plants and trees. So I put together the text for the piece based on these emails, voice messages, Facebook posts, conversations, interviews. And there was this one that was a friend of mine from a theater group, and she was talking to me about how she has 2 other sisters. There are 3 sisters, and how her dad, every time there's a new daughter that is born, what he does is he plants the placenta and then a mango tree, and then depending on how that tree is doing, that's how he can kind of have a sense of how their girls are doing out in the world. This is in Puerto Rico, and he lives on a mountain, and she was really funny when she described it. She was like, because now her daughters are out in the world, which means San Juan. They're not in the mountains. And so he can see the tree, and if the tree's not doing so well, then he knows how they're doing. So this is really about how we connect to trees at a very deep level, and how at the core of it, it's also women and stories of women. And so this is from a matriarchal point of view, talking about how she is really at the core of it all.
Okay, first taste. Beautiful.
And I'll also say really briefly that you'll hear a piano sound that is just to give you an idea of the other voices that we'll be playing, because I wish I could do all the choral parts, but I'm going to be doing one of the choral parts, and then you'll hear a piano that will not be performed in the chorus of the forest. That will be actual human voices. So this is a 3-minute excerpt from Seed from Chorus of the Forest.
Blown away. Love it. So at this point, I think I have more questions for both of you, but due to time, I'd like to open it up to the audience and have a little back and forth. I'm sure some parts of the conversation have piqued your curiosity, especially about the creative process and the tech, which are totally fascinating. So anything from the audience is welcome. And we're going to be concluding the show in sort of 6 or 7 minutes, yeah?
Hi, Jessica. Hi. Another wonderful composer and dear friend. This is happening on November 2nd and 3rd at the Thine Family Forest. There's going to be 2 shows each day, so that's a Saturday and Sunday. We have one at 1 and one at 3, and it's a 45-minute immersive experience with lots of wonderful people singing.
Did you imagine your work inspiring anything like this when you were first doing it?
No, that was not in my imagination. I'm absolutely thrilled. I can't wait to experience this. It's remarkable to see how these sounds that are coming from the trees, in a way, we're finding ways to listen to them. And this piece brings them back into conversation with the trees in the forest as well. So it's also, there's a closing of a circle there. It would be really fascinating to cue into what's happening inside the tree during the performance. It's November, so they'll be feeling pretty mellow and in the mood to listen, I think. So no, it really is just a remark that the small pieces that we've heard today are just extraordinary, and I cannot wait to hear the full piece in November.
Did I see a hand here? Yeah.
Hi. How did you get the sound out of the trees? How did you attach the microphone? Where was the microphone? What type of microphone did you use?
So in terms of recording from the trees, some of the recordings we heard were from accelerometers, which is a little device. It's inside every smartphone. You can buy them for a few dollars or hundreds of dollars, depending on it's like about the size of a bean. You stick it at the outside of a tree or onto something that's, say, if there's a nail stuck in the tree. Normally I don't use that. I just stick it on the bark itself. Then that feeds through a DI box, which is essentially converting that into a signal that the computer can record, and then I record it as you would just by plugging a microphone into the computer. So accelerometers, which are picking up any kind of motion, is turned into an electric signal. Some of them I'm recording with just a regular microphone, say the Cottonwood and the Ponderosa, just getting a regular microphone tuned for human voices out into the woods and pointing it in the right direction and being there at the right time. And then the one from the maple twig is from a Dendroband, which is a little electronic caliper that records how wide the twig is and then sends that to a chip that records every 15 minutes for months and months how wide was that twig. And tree physiologists use this to record, to monitor the growth of trees. What I've done is take that data stream and turn it into sound. Yeah.
Let me see at the back here, yeah.
So much of this idea of the ebb and flow of biodiversity, listening to the trees, relates back to work that Indigenous peoples and Indigenous voices have been doing for centuries. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how Indigenous movements of today, Indigenous peoples of the Americas, have affected your work and contributed to it in the perspective you're taking today.
I'll just say very briefly that for me, as I was composing this and in other previous work that I've done, I was thinking a lot about Icaros and these chants that come to shamans in South America literally from the plants themselves, and about how the melody is very striking but haunting, and how it moves. So that was a very direct influence in the way I was thinking of the voice in relationship to this very deep connection to nature and the ancestors of the land that we're in.
Yeah, and that's an incredibly important question. The voice of the earth, whether it's heard through birds, through the voices of wind, water, through trees, is present in every culture that I'm aware of, whether it's the Norse cultures, the cultures of the Middle East, or of different parts of the Far East, from Central America, from South America. And in my own work, what I've done is pick particular individual trees. So one tree in East Jerusalem, one tree in Manhattan, one tree in the Amazon, in the Amazon forest in Ecuador, and then return again and again to that tree to listen to the tree's sounds, the botanical sounds, the sounds of non-human animals, and then to be in conversation with the people whose lives are tightly connected with that tree. In the Amazon, that involved talking to the Guarani, the Ashua, the Shuar, some of the Quechua people whose cultures understand the stories and the songs of trees in ways that go back for thousands of years of listening. And I cannot presume to translate those stories, but I can try to listen and then to offer some of those strands of experience and then to weave them together with my own thoughts and then some of what I've learned in other parts. Say, for example, in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, talk to people whose livelihoods are connected to the trees, to the disappearance of trees through war, which is one of the challenges, of course, for olive farmers in the Middle East, and then think about how that connects to the deep story of humanity over tens of thousands of years and where we're headed next. Because, of course, forests around the world are in crisis. We're losing forests at the rate of thousands of square kilometers a year. And so we're in this time of great loss of our leafy cousins. And there is no good future for humanity, I don't think, without companionship with forests. Whether those forests are forests within cities. 20% of New York City is tree canopy still, so it's a forested city in some ways, or those forests of the boreal or the Amazon. So that process of listening to other beings and other peoples, I think, has to be a central part of our response to the climate crisis.
Can I just pivot that one to you, Angelica, and also say, I'm really interested in how you envision this in the larger story in a similar way. Like, we have a climate crisis, we have a disconnect with the natural world. Do you see your work as trying to create a catalyst between people and spaces, green spaces, and how much do you feel that can contribute to climate solutions and, turning the ship around from disaster?
Very big question. I think we've been talking about this for the past 2 hours, and one of the things that keeps coming up is how we are really moved to do something and to take action through emotions and through connection, and art has a very special way of doing that. And it is my hope that with a piece like Chorus of the Forest, that people are not only encouraged to be present and listen actively, but also through these specific words that come from themselves, from others in many different parts of the world, that through those stories they see connections, and they're also moved to a place of action and really trying to create change. So yeah, I'm thinking of climate change, but I'm thinking of many other things too. And for example, as I was writing this piece, it was, as I was finishing it this summer, a lot of things were happening in Puerto Rico, which is where I was born and raised, and a lot of things that have to do also with climate change, but also political things, and communities rising up and coming together, and the resilience of people. And as I was reading a lot of David's words and other people, words about nature, the connections about the resilience between the natural world and communities, just for me was something that felt like it had to be really the core of the piece. So I am hopeful that it's encouraging people to take action beyond definitely climate change, but beyond that, and really rising up and shouting.
I see the common thread as being awareness of connectedness. When you have awareness of connectedness, then you are inspired to do what's right for the people around you, the natural world, living things, plants, and if you have unawareness of it, it's easy to just ignore what needs to happen. Please join me in thanking David and Angelica. You guys, thank you so much. Thank you. Wonderful. We're landing the ship in just over 2 hours. I have a grand finale. You guys want to hear one more rap? We're the holdouts up in the house right now, so I did prepare a grand finale. So what I'm going to do now is a freestyle that attempts to summarize our entire experience here together today. So let's do this. Really easy topics to wrap about, frankly. All right. Before I start the freestyle, I have a little, prepared written introduction that sets it up so you can understand how freestyle rap really works, psychologically. Because a freestyle is not free. A freestyle's regulated. That's what keeps it elevated instead of degraded. I voluntarily restrain it so you get something from it. It's free, but it's not free. It needs infrastructure. You want to hear a freestyle that's really free? Check it out. Yeah, I improvised every syllable in that sequence. But was the lack of semantic content a weakness? Okay, here's a freestyle that is slightly less free. Intelligible words, bird, bees, listen to the trees, sweet. Those words came straight off of the top of my dome. But in retrospect, there wasn't enough of a point in the flow. So I suppose when I freestyle, it should have more parameters. So you could tell the difference between professionals and amateurs. It's gotta work sonically, rhythmically, and logically. It's better off with better laws, kind of like market economies, because freestyle ain't free, right? Freestyle's regulated. It's all the rhyme and rhythm that makes it lyrically innovative, and freedom ain't free. Freedom involves trade-offs. We don't want our bankers to be free like Bernie Madoff, right? I want you to have the freedom to say whatever you're thinking, but not the freedom to drive on the highway when you're heavy drinking, right? Freedom ain't free. You want a free market? I want a market free from people dumping their garbage on me. Freedom ain't free. Now don't freak out, but the whole rest of this flow is about to be freestyle, which means it's time for me to start demonstrating that I'm an artist, because I only rock shows at the New York Botanical Gardens for the holdout. That's right. That's how I do the freestyle, especially when the population is like 20% of the crowd and everybody else had to go off for a little appointment, but they missed the best part of the show. That's disappointment. That's how it goes. Can't you even see? I'm one of those MCs that early on in my life learned to listen to the trees. That's the way that I'm doing it, and people say that I'm killing it, but that is a message that goes way back. Check with indigenous. That's how we gotta do it, can't you see? Protect the woods, it's all good. See, this is me, my botanical hood. As I'm walking through, listening to every sound is hardcore. Yeah, Angelica's creating the green version of Sleep No More, because you can go in any direction, top or bottom. See, every way that you can take on the chorus of the forest is awesome. That's how it goes. Yeah, people listen, I kill the beat. Make some noise if you love the dancers in the Ocean Trilogy. Oh my God. I mean, come on, that was amazing. It brought it to life. Plus the comedy of Chuck Nice. That's how it really goes. Can't you even see? I'm in the mood. I got the groove. Plus make some noise for Brian Fu. Oh yeah, amazing. That's the way that it's scorching. They got a sea level rise that's happening now in New Orleans. That's how it's gotta go. Yeah, that's how I kill the groove. Plus make some noise for the performers from Human Impacts Institute. I'm rocking this beat, even though my tempo is not always delivered awesomely. That's how it goes. Can't you even see? I'm random with my chants. I got rhythm like plants. You can even bring it together as I kill the info. People listen, they're like, yeah, that's a Canadian white boy tempo. In other words, it's dope when people listen, because this is me and my habitat. It's my ecosystem, because freedom ain't free, right? Freedom involves trade-offs. We want freedom like Picasso, not like a baby with crayons. Donald Trump. Freedom ain't free. I hope you like my freestyle, even if it wasn't entirely free. Peace. Peace out. Thank you guys very much. Big round of applause for NYBG for putting this together. You've been a wonderful crowd. Thank you.